Hello friends, welcome to Zia IAS. So as we had a discussion last day, we will be taking up the Ecology and Environment series of lectures, and with almost 45 lectures we will complete the entire syllabus for Ecology and Environment for your UPSC Civil Services examination, both from prelims perspective and also from your mains perspective. So this is the second lecture in the series. If you have missed the first lecture, it is available on our channel Zia IAS. You can find the lecture from our channel. So this is the second one in the series. So I will be completing all the 45 lectures, 45 or somewhat more than that. When we include the current affairs also, maybe it will go a little more further. So people were asking me in the comment section in the previous class that whether I will be giving all the lectures on YouTube or not. I will provide all the lectures on YouTube. And when we complete all these 45 plus lectures from the series, I am sure that you will be able to attend 90 to 95% of the questions from Ecology and Environment in your prelims plus your mains examination. So let's begin today's lecture, and once again I remind you that the Ecology and Environment is very important for your UPSC preparation, especially in the prelims exam, because the Indian Forest Service examination is combined with your prelims examination, and there is every chance you will get at least 25% of or 1/4 of total questions from Ecology and Environment. So considering the importance of this subject, let us cover this subject holistically, comprehensively through the series of lectures. So let's begin. Today we will be discussing about the levels of ecology, the principles of ecology, and the organizations, ecological organizations. So basically we will be dealing with some levels of ecology, that is certain levels of organizations in ecology, like individuals, species, then population, community, ecosystem, biome, and the biosphere. So these are called the levels of organizations in an ecology. Then we will discuss some important principles in ecology, like the principle of adaptation, variation, adaptive radiation. Then we will discuss about speciation, mutation, natural selection, evolution, and extinction. So these are the topics which we will be discussing today in detail. So let's start the lecture. First, let's come to ecology. What is ecology? In the previous class also, we briefly just discussed about what is meant by ecology. Ecology is the branch of biology. Biology means anything which has life. So branch of biology which is concerned with the relationship of organisms to one another and their physical surroundings. So ecology deals with the relationship of organisms with each other and the relationship of these organisms with the physical environment in which they live. So this is ecology, and the term ecology was derived from two Greek words, oikos and logos. Oikos meaning home and logos meaning study. So study of the home of these organisms. Now let's come to the levels of organizations in an ecology. So we said that the levels, in the beginning we said the levels of organizations can be individual level, organism, population, community, ecosystem, biome, and biosphere. So now here we will be discussing all the levels in detail. We will see what are the differences between each levels and each level in detail. Okay, so let's start with, the first one is the organism. But before that, let's see what is individual. So organism itself, it means, organism means an individual living being. So individual living being that has the ability to act or function independently, which means that an organism is an individual. So organism and individual, they are the same, but not every individual becomes an organism. Why? When an individual has the ability to act and function independently, it is called an organism. So not every individuals can become organisms, but those individuals which has the ability to act and function independently becomes an organism. I hope you understood this. Second one is species. Now species is a group of living organisms. Now after organism, the next level is species. So lowest level in an ecology is the individual, or we can say organism. Why? Because individual having some characteristics like the ability to function individually is called an organism, and whereas a species is a group of organisms consisting of similar individuals capable of exchanging genes or interbreeding, and it is the basic unit of taxonomy. So I will explain it further. So the first level. Now when we discuss about the first level, we said first level in an ecology is the organism. Now after organism we have the species. Now what is a species? Species is nothing but it is a group of organisms. That means many organisms come together to form species. But again, what kind of organisms constitute species? It's a group of organisms, living organisms, which have some similar features, that is similar individuals who are capable of exchanging the genes within themselves. Gene is the basic genetic material. So these organisms which come together should be able to exchange or to interchange the genes, or they should be able of interbreeding, that is they should be able to breed with each other. Now let's take a very good example of species. So very good example which you can yourself connect is Homo sapiens. So Homo sapiens is an example of species. Now if we look into Homo sapiens and their characteristics, we will see that Homo sapiens are living organisms. Now, what are the characters of this living organism? Homo sapiens, the living organisms, they have similar features and they are also able to exchange the genes, or they are able to interbreed, breed with each other. So, this is a very good example. If suppose you have some confusion when you see the terms like species and all regarding the definition, one simple way you can remember about their characteristic is to bring some example into your mind so that you can think about the example, the characteristic features of the example, then definitely you will be able to identify what are the features. So Homo sapiens is a very good example of species. So in case of Homo sapiens, they are a group of living organisms which is capable of interbreeding or exchanging the genes within each other. I hope these two levels are clear for you. First one is organism, second one is species. Next, let us move to the third level, that is the population. So population is our third level. Now population, it's a community of interbreeding organisms. Interbreeding organisms, we know they are the same species. Only the same species can interbreed each other, and that is what we already discussed when we talked about the species. So population means it's a community of interbreeding organisms, or it is a community of species occupying a defined area during a specific time. Here two more things are added, that is defined area regarding their habitat. So they occupy a defined area during a specific time. Now when we talk about population, we also need to talk about the population growth rate. So growth rate of population can be either positive growth rate or negative population growth rate. Now what is positive growth rate and what is negative growth rate of population? Now positive growth rate of population is when there is birth, that is addition to the population by means of birth or by immigration. So by immigration means coming into a particular habitat. So by the way of birth or through immigration, when there is an increase in the size of the population, it is called a positive population growth, whereas a negative population growth means when there is a reduction in the size of the population due to death or due to emigration. Emigration means leaving a habitat. Suppose you are migrating to a different country from India, it is immigration to that country. Suppose you travel from India to US. So when you travel, there is a reduction in one. So the size of population reduces, and this is emigration for India, and for US it is immigration. So the first one, immigration. Okay, so this is regarding the third level, that is the population. Now let's come to community, which is the fourth level. And within community we have major communities and minor communities. We will come to that, but before that let's see what is a community. Community it is named after the dominant plant or the dominant, mostly the dominant plant form in that particular place. Now, let us take for example a particular habitat or a particular geographical location where there is an excess or where there is a domination of some species of plant population, then we name that particular geographical location by the plant which is dominant there. Let us take the example of a grassland. Now, in case of a grassland community, it is dominated by grasses. It doesn't mean that there are no other kind of plants. There can be herbs, there can be trees, there can be every other form of plants as well. But the dominant community there is the grassland, and that is how we give the name grasslands. Now, other examples of communities can be tropical evergreen forest, deserts, this is a community, then deciduous forest. So all these are communities, and communities can be further divided or broadly divided into major communities and minor communities. Now let's talk about the major communities. Major communities are large sized and relatively independent communities. So major, the name itself gives us an idea about the size of the community. It is large sized and also it is relatively independent, and it only depends on sun's energy from outside. So solar energy is the only external factor on which this community is dependent upon. Example is tropical evergreen forest. We also have minor communities which are dependent on neighboring communities and are often called societies. So minor communities, they are often dependent upon the neighboring communities, and they are secondary aggregations within a major community. So minor communities can be seen within the major community. So major, minor. Okay. Now an example is a mat of lichen on a cow dung pad. Here the cow dung pad is the major community, whereas the mat of lichen is the minor community which lives in the major community. I hope you got this point. Now next level we have the ecosystem. Yesterday also we had a detailed discussion about ecosystem. I also told you that ecosystem was a previous year question asked in the UPSC preliminary examination 2015. The question was so direct that they asked about the definition of ecosystem. So ecosystem, it's a community of organisms which interact with each other and with the environment. So a community of organisms, these organisms, they interact with each other and also they interact with the physical environment outside them. And next we have the biome. Biome is the next level. So biome, it's a large naturally occurring community of flora and fauna. Flora and fauna means plants and animals. So a large naturally occurring community of plants and animals occupying a major habitat. So this is biome. Example, rainforest, tundra, these are all examples of a biome. So biome is basically a large naturally occurring community of both plants and animals. And another thing is that the plants and animals in a biome, they have common characters due to similar climate. As we said, this is a major habitat. So habitat is where the plants and animals live. So the place where they live or their habitat. So since they all live in a common habitat, the common habitat has similar climatic condition. Let's take some example. Here we have seen the example of rainforest. Now the rainforest, it is a habitat for many plants and animals, and these plants and animals in this biome rainforest will have some common characters. Why? Because in the rainforest the climatic conditions throughout the rainforest is similar, and therefore these plants and animals are exposed to such similar climatic conditions that they will develop some common characteristics among themselves. And biomes, do not confuse the biomes with that of habitats. Biomes are distinct from habitats. It's different from habitats because any biome can comprise of a variety of habitats. Habitats, it's a narrower concept, whereas biome is a broader concept, and sometimes many habitats together can form a biome. So do not confuse that both are the same. Habitat is a small concept, or we can say a narrower concept, whereas biome is a broader concept. And at times it can be seen that many habitats together, they constitute a biome. Now let's move on to the principles of ecology. So here in the principles of ecology, we will see some of the important principles like the principle of adaptation, variation, adaptive radiation, speciation, mutation, natural selection, evolution. Also, we will discuss about extinction. So what are these principles? We will see them in detail, and please do understand that these are the basic lectures from the series, and if you are missing this basic lectures thinking that this is not going to be asked in the examination, you have mistaken, because if you do not know the concepts, see the previous year questions. Even though they ask you the current affairs, if you are not clear with the concept, you will not be able to attempt even the current affair questions. So please be sure that you are thorough with the concepts and try to build the current affairs on the base that you have created with your conceptual knowledge. So please do try to cover the concepts, do cover all the videos in the conceptual part also, so that when the questions come, you will be easily answering the questions without confusion and with much accuracy. So let's come to the principles of ecology. The first principle is the principle of adaptation. Now, what is meant by adaptation? Adaptation is one word that we use in our common day, everyday lives, everyday conversations. So, what is adaptation? Adaptation means you are adapting to something, or you are coping up with something. That is adaptation. So, here also we can connect the same literal meaning to our ecology. So, adaptation means it's the appearance, or the behavior, or the structure, or the mode of life of an organism that allows that particular organism to survive in a particular environment. So now I'll give you an example, then further we will come to the explanation, so that you will better understand that. Now let's take the example of a desert. Now in a desert ecosystem, what we will see is that there are some specific kinds of plants, like cactus. Cactus is a plant which we will see in the desert ecosystem. So many of the desert plants like the cactus, they have very thick cuticle on their leaf surface, and also they have their stomata arranged in deep pits. And why is this character specific to the plants in deserts? This is to minimize the water loss through transpiration. Now the only thing that I want to convey to you is regarding that the desert ecosystem, in the desert ecosystem there is very less availability of water. So the plants and animals which live in the desert, they have to adopt, that is adaptation. So they have to adapt to this particular feature of the desert, that there is lesser water available, and for that what they will do, their appearance or their behavior or their structure or their mode of life will be altered in a way that they will be able to adapt to the particular ecosystem in which they live. And one such example is the plants like cactus, which is seen in the deserts. Now another plant is the Eupuntia, which is also a desert plant, and you will see that there are no leaves for the plant, and also there are these leaves are reduced to spines. So this is also because of the lesser water available in the deserts. Now again, there are many examples. If you look at the mammals which live in the colder climates, generally those mammals which live in colder climate, they have shorter ears and also limbs and ears are very short. Why this is so? This is to minimize the loss of heat. Okay. So these are all some of the examples of adaptation. Adaptation means nothing but organism or a species is adapting to the ecosystem or the climatic conditions of the ecosystem in which the organism lives. And adaptation may be classified into morphological, physiological or behavioral. Not very important for you, but I'll just tell you what are they. Morphological. So what is meant by morphology? So I'll give you an example. For example, giraffe. You must have seen at least the photos of giraffes. So there you will see that the giraffe's neck is very long. Why is the neck of the giraffe too long? This is because when the trees are very high, they have to catch the trees, therefore the neck is very high. This is an example of morphological adaptation. So adaptation, adaptation is done by changing the way one organism looks. Next one is physiological. Now physiological adaptation, an example is the same cactus or the plants seen in the deserts. So because of lesser availability of water, they will change their physiological features. Another example is the kangaroo rat found in the North American deserts. Now because of the absence of external source of water, the kangaroo rat in the North American deserts, they undergo a process called internal fat oxidation. Now under this internal fat oxidation, water is a byproduct, and the same kangaroo rats, they also have the ability to concentrate its urine so that minimal volume of water is used to remove the excretory products. Now third kind of adaptation is the behavioral adaptation. Now behavioral adaptation example is animals migrating temporarily. Now for example, when a habitat becomes stressful for an organism or animals, it temporarily migrates. So this is another example. Now let's see some of the examples of adaptation. Many of them we have already discussed. Desert plants have thick cuticle and stomata. This is to minimize the loss of water through transpiration. Now the mammals in colder climate, they generally have shorter ears and limbs. This is to minimize the heat loss from their own body, to keep themselves warm. Now Opuntia, it is a desert plant, doesn't have much leaves or no leaves, and they only have spines. This is again to minimize the water loss through transpiration. Now even in case of human beings, we breathe faster when we reach the high mountains. So these are all some examples of adaptation. Now next one is acclimatization. So climatization and acclimatization. Now what is acclimatization? Let us see what is it. So acclimatization, it means small changes that take place in the body of a single organism over short periods to overcome small problems due to changes in the surroundings. Acclimatization. So acclimatization means this is also a kind of adaptation. So here it refers to adaptation to a particular climate. So in order to adapt to a particular climate, small changes take place in the body of an organism for short period, and this is to adapt with the climate. That is why it is called acclimatization. To adapt to the climatic conditions, small changes happening in the body of an organism. Next we also have the hyperthermophile. So hyperthermophile, it is an organism that thrives in extremely hot environment. So organisms which can thrive even in extreme hot conditions. Even if the temperature is very high, this organism can still survive. That is called hyperthermophile. Next we have the next principle, that is the principle of variation. Now variation means varying, differences. So variation are induced by changes in genetic makeup due to addition or deletion of certain genes. So variation means differentiation or making some differences or varying, and this is done by, or this happens due to changes happening in the genetic makeup of an individual. And how does the genetic makeup changes? This is by the way of addition or by the way of deletion of certain genes. So this is called variation, and these are the forms, or these are the ways by which variation happens. One is mutation, second one is change in climate, third one is geographical barriers. So these are the ways through which variation happens. Now mutation means change in the genetic character of an individual or of a particular organism. Next one is change in climate or geographical barrier. Like for example, if a particular species or an organism is geographically isolated, then also the scope of interacting with the other organism reduces, therefore variation can happen. So these are some ways through which variation happens. Examples of variation: the difference in the color of the skin, the type of hair, whether your hair is curly or straight, the eye color, the blood type. So all these are the examples of variations. Variations are the differences. Okay, next shall we move on to the next level or the next principle, which is the adaptive radiation. So adaptive radiation is the next principle of ecology that we have to learn. And adaptive radiation is the process in which the organisms diversify from an ancestral species into a multitude of new forms when the environment creates new challenges or opens new environmental niches. So there is an ancestral species. Suppose, let's come into this picture. So from an ancestral species, the diversification takes place. The organisms diversify. Now here in this example, here it is the finches in the Galapagos archipelago. So here you will see that different diverse finches have originated from one single ancestral finch. And why did this happen? This is because of the new challenges or because of the new environmental. Now next, let us move to the next principle, which is the speciation. Now speciation is the process by which new species are formed. So speciation means new species are formed. And how is this new species formed? It is formed by the process or the mechanism of evolution. So evolution is the mechanism by which new species are formed, and this is called speciation. Okay. Now what leads to speciation is the geographical isolation. Now I'll explain the process to you. Due to geographical isolation, what happens? There is an evolution of new species. That means species with new characters evolves, and after this evolution, this leads to speciation, which is the creation of new species. Now let's come to it. Let's come to the explanation. After a long period of time of geographic isolation, the subpopulations become very different and get isolated reproductively. That means interbreeding is not possible. They cannot reproduce or they cannot breed with each other. Now this is because of geographic isolation. Later, even when the barrier, that is the geographical barrier, is removed, the subpopulations are unable to interbreed, and thus subsequently the subpopulations become two different species. This is called speciation. Now due to geographical isolation, suppose this was a particular ecosystem and some of the species got scattered and got geographically isolated in a different place. Now these species cannot interact with each other because of the geographical barriers between each other. Now what they will do, the species which are geographically isolated, they will develop their own new characteristics or their own new features. Now even after a long time, when these barriers are removed, these species from the original ecosystem and those species which are in the geographically isolated areas cannot interbreed, or they cannot interact with each other to reproduce the younger generation. What is the reason? The reason is that by this time, because of this geographical isolation, new characteristic features are developed among this geographically isolated species, and this geographical isolation has led to the evolution of new species, which is called the speciation. And this is the next principle. I hope this is also clear for you. Now let's come to mutation. Now what is mutation? Now mutation means a change in the genetic material. So mutation is a change in genetic material, and the change in genetic material is as a result of replication of DNA. So change in the genetic material is due to the error in replication of DNA. We know that from the father or from the mother, from the parents, the child will replicate the DNA, which is the basic genetic material. Now when there is a error in the replication of DNA from the parents to the offspring, it leads to mutation. Now as a result of mutation, new genes will arise in a population. Now father, mother and the basic genetic material, which is called the DNA, is replicated to the offspring or to the child. Offspring we can say. So when this duplication or this replication happens, if there is any error, new types of genes will arise in a population, which is called the mutation. And mutation can result because of errors in replication of DNA, effect of radiation or effect of chemicals. All these can lead to errors in the replication of DNA. And members of the same species show variations and are non-identical due to this genetic recombination. Because of mutation, what will happen? The species which belong or the members or organisms which belong to the same species, they will show variations among each other. Why? Because the genetic material has changed. Okay, I hope you got what is called mutation. So this is mutation. So when you hear the term mutation, bring to your mind that there is a change in the genetic material, and this is as a result of error in replication or due to radiation, or it can be because of the use of chemicals, etc. Next one is natural selection. Now next one is natural selection, which means that the process by which the species adapt to their environment. So this is the process by which the species they adapt to their particular environment. And this mechanism was proposed by Darwin and Wallace. And it is an evolutionary force that selects among variations. What does it mean? It means that these are certain genes that help the organism to better adapt to the particular environment. So such genes are reproduced more in a population due to natural selection. There are certain genes which will help the organism. So certain genes are the basic genetic material. So these genes which are found in certain species, they help these organisms to better adapt to the environment in which they belong to. So these genes which help the organism for adaptation, such genes are naturally selected and they are reproduced more in a population, and increase in the reproduction of these genes happens because of natural selection. Now why natural selection? Because these genes are able to, or they are capable of adapting to a particular environment. So this means that those offsprings which are suited to their immediate environment have better chance of surviving, reaching reproductive age and passing on the suitable adaptations to their next generation. This is natural selection. Next we have the principle of evolution. So evolution means the change which gives rise to new species. So evolution refers to those changes which gives rise to the new species, and evolution happens in order to make the organism better suitable to the present environment. Now can you think of some examples of evolution? So, it is believed that the human beings, they are evolved from monkeys. So Homo sapiens or human beings, how they were evolved from a different organism or a different species. So it is the change which gives rise to new species. So the changes which have given rise to the new species. And why evolution happens? In order to make the organism better suitable for the present environment. That is the reason behind evolution. And evolution is a broader concept because it includes natural selection, adaptation and variation. So it's a culmination of all these: natural selection, adaptation and variation. All together it gives rise to evolution. Now the theory of evolution was propounded by Charles Darwin and Alfred Wallace in 1859. And what is Neo-Darwinism? It is the theory of evolution which was further extended when there was a progress in the genetics. This is Neo. Neo means new. So New Darwinism, the same theory of evolution, when this theory progressed in genetics, so progress was made, or it was further extended when there was a progress in the genetics, it became known as Neo-Darwinism. Next we will be discussing about extinction, and this is the last principle. So let's see what is extinction. Now extinction happens, or it occurs when species cannot evolve fast enough to cope with the changing environment. So you must have heard certain species has become extinct. They are vanished. They are not seen or they are not visible now. Why does this happen? The primary reason is because of environmental change or because of competition or biological competition. Due to biological competition or because of environmental change, many species get extincted, and this is when these species cannot evolve fast enough to cope up with the changing environment in which they live. And at present we are undergoing the 6th mass extinction. So the 6th mass extinction or the anthropogenic extinction is in the progress. So why it is called anthropogenic extinction? Because it is human induced. Human induced means it is caused by the human beings. That's why it is called a anthropogenic extinction. So we are going through the 6th mass extinction. Now what is mass extinction? Mass extinction means more than 65% of all the species become extinct. We will later discuss about what are the extinct species and how they have affected the biodiversity, how they have affected the life on earth, etc. We will discuss all that in detail when we discuss about biodiversity. So now we were discussing some basic concepts, and this is all the principles of ecology. Now finally we will also discuss about some types of extinction. So let's begin with biological extinction. Now biological extinction is when the species no longer are found anywhere on the earth. That is, biologically they have become extinct. They are no longer found on the earth. This is called biological extinction. So on the earth you will never find them, or you will no longer find them. This is biological extinction. Second is local extinction. From the term itself it's clear that in a local area or in a particular area, once the species were earlier inhabited, or once these species were earlier seen, now it's not seen in the local area, and this is called local extinction. Local extinction, even though it is a serious concern, biological, as compared to biological extinction, it is a less severe concern. But biological extinction means that the species is no longer found anywhere on the earth, which shows serious indications of climate change, biodiversity loss, and serious threat to human survival on this planet. Third one is ecological extinction. Species is so few in number that it no longer plays in normal role. So here ecological extinction means that the number of species of a particular species has come down, which shows that earlier the species had a major role to play in an ecology. Now the role of the species in this ecology has come down because the number of the species has reduced. So this reduces its ecological relevance of the species, which is called ecological extinction. We also have the background extinction. It is a continuous process of natural and low level of extinction. So this is natural. After some period of time, naturally, this is the natural extinction rate. So these are the various types of extinction. So tomorrow I will again see you with the next topic from ecology and environment, the continuation of the series. Keep watching and do share this video with your friends. Thank you so much.